Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. It's been a little while. I had to pull up this ancient relic from my old files. So this is going to be a really exciting stream for me because, and don't worry, we're not just going to be showing a QBAM that I made. I have the head developers on call, but I'm going to just give extra context for those and like why I'm even involved in this. So 2 years ago, April 1st, I made an April Fool's video about a mod that I was aware of. It was a triple bind scenario. So you know how Ceasarreich was spawned from Caesarreich, where they had an event that was like, oh, what if Germany lost World War One in a world that Germany won World War One? Well, the Ceasarreich developers then added a thing called Caesarreich, which was what if Germany won World War One from the perspective of a world where Germany lost World War One, from the perspective of a world where Germany won World War One, when in reality Germany didn't win World War One. This is a very chaotic world. I proposed that this antiquitarian nationalist Italy would unite with an antiquitarian nationalist Greece after a Bulgarian war that may or may not succeed. They would unite into the Roman diarchy, and then they would attempt to reunify the entirety of the Roman Empire. I kept baiting people to be like, if this was a mod, this would happen, or if this was a mod, then I would do it this way. And interestingly enough, I didn't think this would happen at all, but there were some developers who, from Führer Redux, now just Ceasarreich, who saw it and were like, you know what, maybe we should make this into a mod, right? So we are going to have a talk with the head developer and the head coder. So I'm going to unmute myself in their call. Hello, everybody. We are live. You are now being heard. I know I told you I would tell you through text when it was happening, but we're here now. So I'm gonna start showing the Discord call. Are you ready, Pascal?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And here we go. So this is Pascal sharing his screen. If you could introduce yourself.
Well, hello there. I'm Pascal. I'm the lead dev of Ceasarreich, and I have a little bit of support with me, one of our head devs. You can also introduce yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody, I'm Ralph. I've been a coder for this mod for I think 1.5 years now, and I'm now the head coder.
Yes, so we are really grateful to be on the stream, and like Lord had introduced, of course the initial video was basically the big spark of creation for us that really started the entire project. And I think since then we have come a long way, but we also in some aspects diverged, of course, from the initial video. And we will probably start with a little bit of a lore section at first. So I have the world map that we currently have pulled up here, just really simple in the background, as you can see. So yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things is that I'll just jump in here. One of the things I love the most about what you guys have done with the project, since you did really take your own direction with it, which is definitely the right call, because I wouldn't have even considered things like antiquitarian nationalist Russia. So that's why they're purple there, and they have the same ideology as Italy in this scenario. So there's some potentially interesting alignment similarities that they can have and how they work together, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just as a quick overview, we have here the basic world map, as Lord had pointed out. I think the biggest addition that we made right away was antiquitarian nationalist Russia. Although I have to quickly say, for the terminology, we moved on with the wording and started calling the ideology national mysticist, because, as was mentioned in the original video, a problem that also occurred with Führerreich was that the special ideology was a bit too narrow. Like, can you really talk about antiquity when you're talking about a movement in Japan, for example? That's why we moved on to calling the ideology national mysticism. And I would just scroll down and start right away with our very first teaser, which was the Latin National Republic, or Italy, better known. And yeah, I think as LoreDad mentioned, the initial video talked about the idea of the merger between Greece and Italy. And that was probably our biggest departure, which we made also relatively early on, that we just came to the conclusion after a lot of thoughts and deliberations, looking for people who could even lead these movements and so on, we wouldn't want to go that. And I fondly remember the exciting early discussions that we had in the team about the this great feeling of a fresh idea, you know, of starting a new mod. And the video was basically the perfect backdrop for it, and I think nobody really could have anticipated how well this works. And I also want to offer a great thanks on this point, because when you see this kind of content and you think to yourself, well, this is so cool, I would really love to work on that. A lot of people think that and get together, and you then have a project which comes to be its very own thing. That's just a nice thing, and of course that also involves changes. And with Italy, that's probably the big change that we made at the beginning right away, and also a fundamental stone, because we decided on, as you can see here, Arturo Regini, who would become the leader of Italy, who very closely, funnily enough, aligns with the vision for Italy that was outlined even in the original lore video that LoreDad made. And that's kind of how the center star of the mod came to be very early phases of development.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I'd like to thank you guys too, because I think it's really awesome that you guys managed to get inspired so much that you made your own thing, and I think it definitely was the right call for you guys to have your own direction with the project. I remember being pretty attached to my idea initially when I was in, I think I was in the Discord in the early stages trying to like give my thoughts on things, but like at the same time, you guys have your own direction, and by allowing you guys to have your own ideas, it helped inspire the rest of your world, and it was definitely the right call, I think. So while it was sad to see the diarchy not a thing, I still think that this is a really interesting way that you've been approaching this. The border changes in the communist Hungary, for example, all really good stuff.
I think it's also very important to emphasize it's not like we just said, oh well, nah, that sucks, we're gonna ditch it. Actually, the whole idea of the diarchy later inspired a very significant aspect of Italian foreign policy and also expansionism in the game, but we kind of switched it around. You will see more of that later on, but I can say that the idea of the diarchy survives in the mod, just in a different form. It was really simply when we researched like who could lead the Greek aspect of it, we came to the conclusion Greece is a young country, it just won its independence, it's led by nationalists. It would be very hard to justify it again submitting itself to a larger, more powerful overlord, especially when it's led by nationalists. That's why Greece in the mod is a great ally of Italy. They have a shared goal in their foreign policy. They will work together in the Balkans, basically everything that the diarchy would also do. It's just that they keep their own national independence.
Great.
Yeah, as you can see here, our first teaser, it looks a bit austere, of course, but yeah, that's basically Italy. We can go more into the weeds of the Italian ideology and Regini later on, but it was also the very early time when we conceptualized national mysticism in itself, essentially.
Yeah,
So
cool.
yeah, that's the Italian section.
Yeah,
So
sure.
moving on, what we will also see today, I have here a little aspect of what's the situation for the remaining Italian colonies, like Italian East Africa. We have Ethiopia collapsing in on itself, while the government of Italian East Africa becomes basically a playing ground for experimentation of the regime. Therefore, you will have a figure that some people might know, who is the governor of Italian East Africa, and we know it's maybe a bit more on the out there side of things, but we also believe that while we definitely strive towards a believable world, we also want to have a world that's fun, and therefore we think it's also important to sometimes mix in ideas which aren't impossible, maybe a bit more out there, but at least they are interesting for the player and give you just this little bit of spice into it, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really cool part about what you've done. So you had a single point of divergence, from what I understand. We can talk more about that
Yes,
when you get to the
we
America
can
teaser.
definitely.
But because of that groundedness, you were able to rationalize, okay, so there won't be a Italo-Greek diarchy, but you still respect the original vision of Caesarreich being a really wacky world, which is how which I think you've
Exactly.
taken into consideration with all your projects, including, is that Albert the First, King of Belgium, as Emperor of Ethiopia?
Yes, I'm glad you noticed. Yeah.
Okay.
We have it's a rather obscure bit of history, but when in World War II, the Force Publique was actually employed in East Africa and in the African campaigns. And we basically put the timeline a bit earlier, especially with the fall of the Belgian Congo and the fundamental reshuffling of the powers in Africa. So yeah, it will be I think East Africa is a little bit of our playground for these a bit more wacky ideas, as you said, in line with the original spirit of the mod.
Right. Well, that's awesome.
Okay, yeah. So moving on, we have the Ethiopian Peninsula. I figured it might be nice to just have the Middle East, basically. Yeah. One thing that might be interesting to people who know about the Middle East would be that we have the Senussi Hejaz takeover, which completely reshuffles the power balance that we have in the Middle East. But yeah, so far, basically the situation there, and moving on to the Baku Pact. So we are also showing the Middle East and the Baku Pact because in the later gameplay that you will be seeing, these areas will play a bit of a role, and I think for us it was always a thing that we want to also shine light on areas which usually get a bit neglected in some mods, and with a victory of Germany in the First World War, which is one of the main premises, you usually see either a collapsed Turkey or you see a surviving Ottoman Empire, and we didn't want to go in either route, and what we ended up with is the Baku Pact, which is its own power block in the Middle East, headed by a strong Turkish Republic, which is in alliance with alliance states and basically finds itself in a awkward spot between the expansionist Russians in the north and the fledgling empire or retaking of the empire that the British are attempting in India and the Middle East.
Great.
So these are also teasers that are all did and on our Discord. I won't read every single bit of writing here. I think
Yeah.
else the stream will take a few hours.
Yeah, but this is just so that people can get an understanding of where the project is
Yeah,
going.
exactly.
And yeah, I think in the description of the stream already you can go to the Discord, but I'll be sure to make that happen.
Yeah.
So this is one of the most interesting things. I'll let you talk
Yes.
first.
So now we are getting into the weed of things with America, which is also our main POD, because we have the McKinley assassination failing, and the fallout of the assassination attempt, the different lineages of presidents, and the policies of McKinley leads to a completely different political climate in the United States before World War I. And what we basically aim towards for the United States is this feeling of a oligarchic republic and a stillborn progressive movement, which would in turn also lead to a United States which is under much harsher conditions. Basically, imagine the Gilded Age never really ending. Imagine labor never really becoming a big thing. Imagine progressive movements being fractured, not really influential. There is no Roosevelt, there is no Wilson. And all this leads to a United States with a completely different outlook on politics. And also a United States which would, after some clashes and, let's say, incidents, join the Central Powers in World War I.
Yeah.
And this is basically the main divergence from our scenario. A Gilded Age, oligarchic America joining the Central Powers and turning the tide to the best of its ability. We furthermore have no League of Nations, we have no ideas of basically the American progressive ideas. And we have a business rules everything mindset in the United States. And what you can see here is a admittedly early draft of what a America with these political, business and social outlooks would look like if it completely trumped the British Empire and built itself a sort of neo-colonial empire. Now, one has to, of course, see that the colonies of the United States, even if I call them that, aren't colonies in themselves, but they are more like resource exploitation ploys. But we are going way more into detail with that. This is also a very active aspect of development right now, so I don't want to spoil too much. But what you see here is very early on. And of course one might ask, okay, United States joins Central Powers, this means total German victory. But similar to the initial mod, we didn't want to go with a total victory, because logistical realities and military realities probably leave less of an impact for the United States in the Central Power than one might imagine. Therefore, the main premise of the mod is a World War I that was also more destructive. You have American blockades, you have war in the Pacific, you have a war that goes on slightly longer as well. And a war that's not really having this clear victor, because even though the Central Powers win, they are bled dry, they are fought to exhaustion. Like, there's no way the United States realistically could send troops to the Somme, for example.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we have to just keep in mind when we have these kinds of scenarios. And that's also what we are running with.
Yeah. I think that like some people they just think hoi forebrain, like I'm not gonna stop the fight until I capitulate all my enemies. It's not especially the First World War wouldn't work that way. So I think this is a really good approach.
I mean, people tend to forget just the realities of war when you are almost at the brink of a famine in Germany. Even if the military wins or has like a successful summer offensive, for example, the people won't really hold that much longer. And the United States is powerful, of course, with its great industry, but there is like a imperial navy in between them and their German allies. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not just you like a weight, then you just add the United States to it, and suddenly the scale tips into the favor of Germany, and they just win outright.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's
Yeah.
definitely the right call.
Yeah, and of course with the social implications, which I admittedly very broadly outlined earlier, we also have this is one of our newest teasers for the United States. We have a American Civil War. Yes, we have a civil war in
Woo!
America.
American Civil War.
Yeah, what would a mod for? Yeah, let's be honest. What would a mod for Hearts of Iron be without American Civil War?
Exactly.
Like,
exactly.
it's like a Cuba Libre without cola.
Yes.
So, what we showed here is the presidency of Baruch, which will be the starting president. And that's also something I just want to outline. You will see a certain kind of progress between teasers. Just the reality of a developing mod. But Baruch is our starting president. We have like a starting tree focused out, a army tree. There will be a political crisis early on in America, and we have this civil war basically being the fallout of this whole lack of reform, rule of business, this whole atrophied system that is basically in power of the United States. It's literally a corrupt, robber baron country, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And these ongoing social issues, these ongoing political issues and economic issues will culminate into a big breakdown, which is the Civil War, which we also try to be a bit more imaginative with the factions, so you don't have the usual ultra-nationalist South, socialist Detroit, and liberal West Coast. We try to go a bit more outside of that frame. And we have here a little teaser for the first Warlords. This is also, like I said, the Americans are actively being developed. This is the first teaser that we have for the more army cliques, essentially, in the Civil War, which I want to show off really quickly. We have the Sons of Liberty under Pershing. Who knows, maybe somebody will get the reference. Also punished Pershing, of course. We have the Washington Defense Authority, Los Alamos Strategic Command, and Fort Riley. And these are all basically army commanders which are cut off from the central government in these civil wars, and their authority rests upon the units that they commanded. And a interesting aspect to the Gilded Age American state that we have just breaking down here is the Baldwin-Fells clique, which was a group that existed in our timeline and consists of strikebreakers and basically ruthless paramilitaries which were hired by officials to beat down labor unionists. So of course these are a very natural faction to have in a Gilded Age United States which fights against a progressive and labor uprising. And there are also very interesting implications of their connection to the CIA and other agencies. Just something that I want to tease very broadly here.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's basically a really quick look at the United States development.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks. So, one aspect is, of course, the national mysticist Russia that you also mentioned earlier, which we call the Eurasian Revolutionary Republic in the mod. The term Eurasian, I should emphasize, has nothing to do with Dugin or modern politics, more so of the self-understanding of a geographical term of Eurasian. And as you can see, that's also a very interesting contrast I want to point out, how these very early teasers look in comparison to later ones, and also how we have a completely different icon style in these teasers going on. It's these early teasers where we tried a lot of things, you know, we basically tried out icon styles, we tried out teaser styles, we just wanted to play around with different ideas. And for Russia, I would want to say that there are definitely things to come. That's why I don't want to get too deep into things, but if people are interested, they can Google Alexander Block, who is our Russia leader, and that should give you an idea what direction Russia will be heading.
Cool.
I have here, to show you what I mean with ongoing development, this is basically how it looks like when we are detailing out how things are happening in the mod. And when I said earlier with the United States, for example, I'm giving you a broad outline, I really mean it, because while we may be all interested in studying history, I don't want to bore you people with tons of text. But we can also look back into these kind of graphs later on if there's interest. But maybe if somebody wants to later pause the stream or the video, I can zoom in and you can just read this stuff.
That's
we
really
usually
cool.
do a lot of development using Draw.io and these graphs, which serves basically as a lore bible as well. And then all the devs can just pull these things up, look at it, and also see a bit if their ideas fit, if have another nation that's somehow related to Russia, then you can obviously pull these things up and see, oh well, okay, this lore-wise works, or this is maybe a little bit of a conflict. I think that's really important when you're doing a mod, that you just have the information available to all the devs.
Yeah, it's really good. This is the sort of lore stuff that really helps with developing out nations beyond just vibes. So it's a lot of work, but you're making it work, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth it. So yeah, moving on from Russia, or like a little bit of, that's another example of what we basically do. Like these little, just these little drawings, these little graphs, just to bring information across. And something I can say about Russia's version of national mysticism, when we are already pulling it up, is that national mysticism will obviously differ from nation to nation. And in the case of Russia, we have the idea of a sort of Russian exceptionalism merged with imperialism and a form of socialism that rejects Marxist internationalism, which all works together to form the greater ideology that Russia falls under.
Yeah, it's really
but
good
again,
that you...
as I said...
It's really good that you...
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
I'm sorry. It's really good that you rectified this early, because if you don't, then people will just get confused and not understand it and then have conflicting things. So I can see how you guys are learning from original Ceasarreich's mistakes of not defining Volkism beyond Germany. So
yeah.
That's really smart.
I think when you spoke about it in your video, this really basically hit the center of the problem, because early on with Volkism we basically had an ideology that was purely conceptualized for Germany and Germany alone, and even the symbolism really only makes sense in Germany, and we tried to move away. That's why we also took the broader name of national mysticism instead of antiquarian nationalism.
Yeah, it makes sense.
that just allows us a way broader definition of the ideology and also the possibility for the understandable sub-ideologies. For example, in the case of Russia, it would of course be more of a sub-ideology since it differs so much from the Italian conception of the ideology, which is much more focused on Roman, Romanitas, civilization, and spiritual and initiatory lineage. While with Russia you have this basically neo-socialist, apocalyptic, Christian, Russian exceptionalism. Yeah, as I said, with Russia, things to come, so I don't want to say too much. Then Germany, of course, the big star of our mod, besides Italy, of course. And with Germany, an idea that I found really interesting from the initial video was the thought of going with a German republic. Because the most cliché and obvious thing you could do with a German victory scenario in World War I, have some sort of Caesarreich, you know, with Wilhelm II in charge, and we very early on decided to depart from that idea, which is also a departure from the original mod, and something that really stuck around from day one. When we basically went from the video to creating the Discord, this was already a decided aspect, and we decided to have a Germany run by the SPD under Karl Severing. And Germany, in a sense, becomes the democratic bloc together with its Europabund, literally means European Union, I think, even.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, yeah, and they are basically the big democratic player in Ceasarreich, which I think is not often seen in Hearts of Iron mods, that Germany is the big democratic, wholesome, liberal one.
Yeah,
But
even
we
in,
try to, of course, yeah.
Even in Talons and Twilight, Germany is liberal, but it's not wholesome.
True, yeah. So we try to, of course, still also make the democratic paths interesting to play. I have here a teaser for the Cabinet of Severing, which is the starting tree for Germany, and you will, of course, have to deal with narrow victories in elections, managing your governments, forming coalitions. There is a left and a right wing that is attacking you. We basically want to create a feeling for the gameplay of a democratic nation that is more than just, oh, it's wholesome and you are doing some social programs, right?
Yeah, that's really smart. Making them work for the social programs.
True. So yeah, then we move on to France. France is also one of the nations which are heavily under development with things to come. So similar to Russia, I wanna not spoil too much here, but it's probably one of the more unique nations, which is due to the fact that it's led by Louis Ferdinand Céline, which was a anarchist and a raging anti-Semite.
Yeah.
So you have a very unique, I'd say a very unique mixture of ideas there. And with Celine, one has to keep in mind that he probably is the closest we have in the mod to a Hitler figure. But the whole state is completely different in its conceptualization, because it's basically a very racialist state in combination with anarchist principles of voluntary service, of localist self-governance, and this obviously brings a rather unstable situation for the entire French nation, which is also reflected in the starting national spirits. we have here, and I mean, more of the lore can be read either in the teaser directly or if you come to the Discord. But I want to leave it basically at that, except you have some questions about it.
I don't really have much questions about this. Something that I do think would like I have my own critiques about that. I'm not gonna mention them now. Like it's a very multifaceted issue because it's like anything I say now, like or even in a potential future video, I don't want to influence you guys from having to rework this thing and then delay the mod, right? Like I'd rather this come out and then give feedback afterwards, if anything. But yeah, I for what it's worth, this is a very interesting take on France. Usually, when people do far right France's, it's like Napoleon or just one of the, like pick your poison of like several of the far right leagues. Yeah.
Is it the art or is it Oreo? Like
exactly, yeah. So this one,
true.
This is interesting. It has its own merit. So I'll definitely respect that.
Yeah. And again, like we also did with Russia, we are of course trying to make sure that it, even if it maybe looks a bit out there or crazy, we wanna have a really concrete, believable, basically way of how did we get there. And I think my team, like I just want to compliment the writers generally. I think they are doing a good job with it, and can't wait to, in a future teaser, show you what we have been cooking with France. But yeah, this is basically the very basic starting situation that we have.
Great.
So moving on, we come to Danubia. Which is a staple of the old modding project and which also was in your video, which we basically took this concept right as it is. So it's our heart of socialism in the mod, essentially. It's more or less, it's hard to call it a Soviet Union stand-in because obviously, it's a completely different situation geopolitically to the Soviet Union, but it's probably the closest that you will get to a great power that is fully Marxist socialist.
Yeah, cool. I'm glad that you guys expanded the borders a bit because I remember in my original I had Serbia still exist. But this way, you have way more defendable borders. You have more resources. You have more methods of expansion. Like, I don't know if you guys had this specifically in mind, but you'd use Serbian claims to expand Danubia against Bulgaria, for example. So this is definitely the right move to make for this. It just, it looks really nice.
Yeah, thank you. So I can just say for a very, very brief overview of the Nubian lore, basically we have the revolutions happening in Austria-Hungary, which unlike Germany was not able to reform its government, its society in the catastrophic aftermath of World War I. We have these socialists rising up, fighting against Austria, winning, conquering Vienna, conquering Prague, and then a rather exhausted but combat-ready German army basically pushes them back and establishes the Czech state and Austria as buffer states, while a armistice was signed. Basically, there isn't really a peace between Germany and Danubia. It's an ongoing truce situation, and Danubia has developed a sort of fortress mentality. Although, unlike the Soviet Union, Danubia never really develops this extremely harsh top-down view on socialism. Like, there's no Stalinist idea in Danubia. It's basically a form of councilist rule, very much influenced by Austro-Marxism, for example. And Danubia aims to spread the revolution in Central Europe with the few allies it has, which is also something we wanted to show here. So this is a very early draft of a mechanic that we were doing, where you can as the Nubia walked a very thin line between supporting socialists in foreign nations and also having this diplomatic balance of not pissing off too many of your neighbors so they invade you, and you will be able to influence other socialist movements in your neighboring countries and potentially lead a Red Dawn and a second uprising throughout Central Europe, which would be dealt with a kind of its own little mechanic that we did here.
Great.
But yeah, that's basically the early gameplay loop that you would have for the Nubia, with of course much more detail to it. I'm being really brief here.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, then we also have showed you again, like these are the kind of working drafts that we do, which shows you the wars that the Nubia will be in, how these kind of things can go. And this is what I mean, like we are basically drafting also the larger geopolitical developments of regions that way, so that you have clear skeleton that development can move along with, and also think a very nice way to just show what's planned.
Yeah, this is really awesome, and this is making me want to like pick your guys' brain for like more videos about like how to organize the whole format, because this is like really this is really great because
Thank you.
it helps the visuals really help everybody understand it, and then it makes it so whoever's coding this, it's really straightforward. There's 4 different outcomes, and then it can go to these outcomes if whatever, and the map is there. It has the states that you need to give to each thing. Yeah, it's really clever. It's really good.
Thanks a lot, yeah. And it also helped us a long way in development so far, so I can really recommend it.
Great.
Yeah, so right. And then we get to basically, I think one of the nations that has seen among the furthest development for Caesarreich, which we will maybe even show some things later down the line, which is the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Yeah, and it is led by Henry Williamson. We very early on and very deliberately decided against using Oswald Mosley as the right-wing leader for Great Britain, and wanted to explore what a very homegrown, very British version of a right-wing movement might look like that isn't influenced by National Socialism in Germany or fascism in Italy, which led us to the very ironically named National Socialist Party of Great Britain under the leadership of Henry Williamson. And I mean, they are socialists, which are also very nationalist. Of course they would name themselves that. I mean, do you think of anything else when you heard that name?
Yeah.
Of course, this is a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke, but interestingly enough, there really was a National Socialist Party in early 20th century in Great Britain, and we kind of built off of that naming scheme. And it basically arose as a response to the failures of Labour government in Britain post-war. Disenfranchised soldiers, a bad economy, and a rupture within the political left. And you have these new party type of people forming their own movement under Williamson, who becomes a big tent leader. And it's important to point out that Britain in itself never experienced a coup d'etat per se, or anything of that sort. Technically, democracy still exists in Britain, but it's basically being hollowed out, being overshadowed by this big tent movement, which kind of infested the nation a little bit. And it will be your task as the player to not only figure out the direction of this movement, but also how to cement a proper hold on Britain, and how to solve the myriad of problems that you will be faced with now that you basically got into power as Henry Williamson. And we, like I said, we did a lot of work on Britain already. We have we have tried a lot to give the NSP a very own identity as well, with mechanics, with their own aesthetics, and I think it really goes a long way to just make a movement feel more alive when you do that, instead of just reusing real world aesthetics. That's why you also don't really see a lot of BOF insignias, for example, although we have used, of course, some assets here and there. But yeah, as you can see, a lot of development already went into Britain. You have the radical fringes of the movement, which can also rise to power. As I said, it's a big tent movement, not fully secure in its position. And yeah, we will most likely later show a little bit of Britain in-game. So that's basically been the development for the Fallen Empire in the mod.
Great.
And of course, the little island next to it, which is nervously looking towards the British ports after it got its independence, which is one of the early crises that the British or the Irish player probably more has to face, where we planned an invasion of Ireland, and of course this will be more of a challenge nation for a player. For example, you have to prepare against the coming Anglo-Saxon onslaught on the Republic of Ireland.
I love the green hue on the focus icon. That's a really good touch.
Thanks. Yeah, our GFX artists, I'm really proud. I think I can freely say that I'm really proud of showing it off. I'm so happy with what they've done, and this is also why I pointed out the Russia icons earlier, just so you can see like the progress we made towards what's an own identity, essentially, with the whole JFX direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool the way that you guys made your own identity, for sure.
Thanks. And just to finish off Britain, we also have the Commonwealth of Australia under Jack Lang, and the New Zealanders under Robert Campbell Beck, which are the very loyal little science of Britain on their side. And we are of course actively working on developing all the British colonies, but I just thought for completion's sake, let's throw also the situation of New Zealand and Australia in here.
Yeah, sure.
And again, I won't read any of these descriptions, right? So we aren't stuck.
Yeah.
And now, if you remember what I earlier said regarding the whole diarchy aspect, we are coming to Spain. And here the idea of the diarchy really took hold in Ceasarreich again, because what we basically said is, okay, it's not really workable, at least with the concept we had in mind, with the diarchy between Greece and Italy. But what we could see was perhaps the Italians being more involved on the Iberian Peninsula. Because even our timeline, there were plans of the Italians maybe seizing the Balearic Islands. You had heavy involvement of fascist troops on the Spanish Civil War. And we basically had the idea of putting the Kingdom of Spain as a puppet nation that is propped up by Italian officials in their goal for Mare Nostrum, against a Spanish socialist republic which in our timeline avoided the civil war and built itself up as a democratic socialist state. And instead of, together with Greece, conquering Anatolia, you can now, together with the Spanish exiles, conquer Iberia, and so we more or less flipped the entire hierarchy situation around, and this has been very helpful to develop a situation for Spain which is hopefully more unique and interesting than having the average 20-sided Spain civil war going on. So yeah, this is where that idea just comes in.
Yeah, I really like how you guys took that approach, because then it redefines Italian national mysticism, or however you want to call it. Yeah, it's national mysticism, not antiquitarian.
Yep.
How it influences the world, and it makes sense if it's like a Latin focused country, they would want to expand their influence in other Latin countries like Spain. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and this is also what I want to emphasize, is even if a idea maybe isn't used in the same way that it was initially conceptualized, it still has its influence on development as a whole, because this idea maybe then bounces off and leads to other ideas, which maybe lead to other influences, or looking into other things, or even knowing if you don't want to do a thing, of course, is a step forward, because then you know what else you want to do, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and to top it off, we then have the Portuguese, another national mysticist, a republic under Fernando Pessoa, which is a very interesting figure as well. Even in real life, I can only say you could look him up, crazy guy. And this really then completes the whole Iberian theater, where you have national mysticism versus socialism, essentially deciding the fate of the peninsula. Again, with a similar draft to the ones we've shown before, just to give you an idea of what we really try to plan with the different outcomes that you can have in Iberia, with different approaches, different geopolitical alignments, and so on.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And I think, thanks. I think this really brings us to the end with the little lore overview. I've very much focused myself on North America and Europe, because that's also the current development focus of the mod. So yeah, also for a release, we probably want to focus on this area really specifically. But of course, we can maybe later on also answer questions about other areas of the world.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm just looking through the Q&As now. Somebody asking what happened to Hitler and Stalin.
So for Hitler, we basically have him dying in World War I. But it's also been a little bit of an ongoing inside joke within the community that we have a unclear answer to what happened to Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini. We had Stalin becoming a priest. But as I said, it's a bit of an inside joke, therefore I don't want to ruin it with a concrete statement, so take that as you will.
Cool. Is the oligarchy... sorry, no. Somebody's asking if there's a second American Civil War, but they didn't see that part yet.
Yeah, of course there is, yeah.
There's a lot of questions that just don't... is Roman von Ungern-Sternberg the leader of Mongolia?
Not of Mongolia, but we have him planned together with other Russians in Manchuria, potentially poised to reinstate the Qing dynasty in China.
That's cool. That's awesome. We got a question here. Thinking about the role of France in this mod, what was the largest inspiration for it? Were you guys inspired by Red Flood France and their original system, or was it something else?
I think what kind of inspired France was the whole volunteerism during the French Revolution, and I think, ironically enough, more so the socialist France that you have in Caesarreich, only with a little bit of twist, like basically, what if this revolution went wrong? Essentially, I have to say, Red Flood was in so far a inspiration for the mod, that it is also a mod that has some more out there concepts, but at least in their recent development, as far as I'm aware, tries to make them grounded and make sense within their alternate history. And that's basically a design philosophy that we also follow up on.
That's cool. In that design philosophy route, how do you usually go for the symbols and flags of each nation? How much do you feel like deviating from our townline but still looking believable?
Well, I'd say it's a bit of a case-to-case basis. So usually we try to avoid very modern conceptions of symbols, or symbols that we of course know didn't exist back then. But sometimes it's also more of a gut feeling, or looking at historic movements, what symbols they use, and maybe using the symbols, using variations of these symbols, so that we at the end come up with something that feels believable, but not just basically ripped from history. So of course that is also always an ongoing thing. Like we also revise, especially these more shallow JFX things, quite a bit. As with the focus icons, you tend to develop a style over time, a way to approach things, and with the flags, it's been much the same.
Cool. So what's the main factions of World War II? Oops.
World War II is interesting in the mod because we have quite a few factions, and this would lead to a very multi-sided World War II. But our approach to it is that in the early game you have, for once, the faction of Germany, you have the socialist faction of Danubia, you have the Baku Pact of Turkey, you have Italy's faction, and you have the Franco-British faction, and you have the United States faction. So as you can see, a lot of factions, right?
Mm-hmm.
But basically these factions would fight a lot of economic, political, and also military proxy conflicts early on, which would eliminate a certain amount of players until basically the fronts harden between 2 or 3 main factions, which would then fight World War II. So we try to create a dynamic system for World War II, which would also allow much more replayability, much more trying out setups and interesting confrontations. Therefore, I cannot give a concrete answer to that.
Would you be using like world tension to determine if a proxy conflict would instead go hot instead of like remaining like simmering and not a direct confrontation?
I'd say it's a mixture of scripted wars on one hand and a world tension, or also a bit of if we want more player-driven aspects, also a decision-based system. So we are using a mixture of different ways to do that.
Cool. What's the plan for Brazil right now?
Brazil and South America is very work in progress, I have to say that. But basically we have Brazil breaking down into a very federalist, I would say almost warlordist state, and therefore not being the united player that we currently know. We would want to avoid a socialist versus fascist versus democracy civil war in Brazil.
Okay.
But again, South America, very work in progress, and we also want to dedicate some more proper teasers and time to it as well.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. What else do we have here? I think that most of this, the questions have been answered. I think it's time to see some gameplay. Who wants to see some gameplay now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I want to hide my Discord quickly so that Pascal can stop streaming. And then
Yep,
Ralph,
I will stop
if you are here.
Yeah.
Awesome. If you could pull up your stream, that would be great. There's a very cool loading screen. Check that out.
Yes.
Well, like we had said before, I think I should note that this is still very work in progress. And because of how mods are structured, some things that we may have teased or should be there are maybe not visible here, just as a disclaimer.
Yeah, because like branches are something that like you have one country or region that's being worked on in a branch, and then everywhere else has its own branch. And then only later, when it's starting to get closer to release, people bring their stuff together and then sort out like, okay, I have this bucket, you have that bucket, but we have the same file, and they have to figure that out. Like I'll detail it later, but people who know. So there'll be some things that like may be inconsistent with other teasers. Is basically the gist.
Right. So we agreed on showcasing Evola and his Libyan colony today. This is what Pascal said earlier with, a diarchy thing. Oh. Oops. I may
Wait, what?
be on the wrong brand.
Okay, that's hilarious. That's great. No worries. Just technical difficulties. I'll go back to my Photoshop, I guess, just for a little bit. So this, if you've seen the teasers compared to this, is very, very different. So instead of the Ottoman Empire holding on and then becoming a warlord, you have Turkey being strong and then reinforcing the Middle East. But the idea behind Libya, from what I understand, is that it's an Italian expedition that then goes and has its own thing. Why did the live chat die again? That's so weird. The chat died twice. I don't understand why that happened.
Interesting what happens on YouTube, right?
Yeah, I've never had that before. It might be because I'm starting a Q&A and then it just craps out, but but that's all good. So like, it's actually a good example of the way that branches work. So because Ralph was on the wrong branch, the content wasn't fleshed out for that nation, right? So then he has to go to the right branch. So that way he can actually play the nation with the content because it's in a different branch of the main thing. And once it's closer to release, everyone will take their branches and merge them together and resolve any conflicts between files that people have taken and shared.
Yeah, and I mean, the great thing with the whole branches thing is, of course, I don't know if Ralph already said it, that you have a lot of control over what goes to the main branch, what doesn't. So if something, for example, is game-breaking, crashes the mod, you can resolve that in a branch without everything else being compromised for everybody. So it's also a big security feature.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to just copy an image from the teasers, just so that the Photoshop is not just an outdated thing. So I don't know exactly when this teaser was made, so it might be outdated. But here you have what Europe looks like in its entirety, and as usual, heavy work in progress, stuff like that.
We should be able to show it now, I think.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Godspeed.
There, okay. I'll switch over to Discord call. Click. Right. There we go. Okay, so here is Evola's expedition to Libya. So could you give a little explanation as what this is?
Yes, so essentially after World War I, Italy was stripped of its Libyan colony, which was given back to the Ottoman Empire. And with the collapse of authority in the Ottoman Empire, you had a lot of the native population in Tripoli, like the native Italian population, calling for liberation from the mainland. And in order to get rid of the troublesome political figure that is Evola, he was sent by Regini on this conquest to basically reconquer the fourth shore for the Italian state. Something that is also very much in line with the personal philosophy of Evola, being this kind of warrior aristocracy, and something that he wants to use to build up his own power base. And the broad idea for Evola in Italy, in Libya, sorry, was if somebody knows the book Hearts of Darkness, for example, or the more well-known film or movie Apocalypse Now, Evola is essentially somebody like Colonel Kurtz, like hidden away in this foreign land, building his own cult of personality there. And this is mixed with the ideas of Alexander the Great, this great leader who leads his army onto a conquest to the end of the world. Of course, this is a little bit as well on the more crazy side, but fitting to Evola's personal politics. And it should also just represent this idea of rightful imperial conquest that is sponsored by the Italian state, the idea of a warrior aristocracy, and also the idea of people just growing hungry with power, maybe grabbing for too much. I think there is a path in, was it Caesarreich, Kaiser Redux with Goering in Italy, which plays off a similar theme. And to also symbolize that, we basically gave Evola fewer troops. He's not really well equipped, but he goes well beyond just the reconquest of the Libyan colony. And you as a player will also have to manage faith into the operation by your men, so they don't abandon you or see you as the mad conquest-driven guy that you really are, which is this balance of power that we also put in. And on the other hand, you also have to manage the relationship that you have with the Italian homeland. Because as I said, he was more or less sent away with this basically impossible task of consolidating Italian superiority in North Africa by himself, so that he couldn't do more, couldn't cause more issues in Rome. But having maybe underestimated Evola, the Italian state will also potentially come into conflict with him and his loyal followers. And this is all building off a conflict of the inner political landscape that you have in Italy, where the more austere rationalist Regini, which wants to spiritually sanctify the Italian state, similar to the early Roman Republic, and the radical traditionalist warrior spirit of Evola, who, while they agree that modernism is bad, secularism is bad, Christianity is bad, they differ on this, what the state should be. And Evola, of course, even in Italy, has many allies who just want a more radical version of what Regini already did. And during the mid to late game, these two will come into a clash, and you're basically working on the early section of Evola building up its his power. Yeah, and it should be one of these paths for the player where you can go a bit crazy, where you can have a great conquest, where you can try out troop compositions and fight a great desert war. That's from a meta gameplay narrative. And of course, such a large conquest will also not come without its consequences. Therefore, as I said, we have a loyalty system, but you will also have to deal with rebellions, you will have to deal with backlash from the local population, you will have to deal with international backlash from either Italy, who demands loyalty, or other countries in the region who see their colonial empires threatened. So a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces, and I think that's why we also wanted to show it off here. And it's also, of course, a very safe, like contained microcosm, which lends itself well for a showcase or perhaps even a beta. Who knows?
Yeah, this is really cool. I like how you guys, especially with the decisions in the gameplay, like it ramps up. It's a challenge, and that's really cool. But so I'm seeing a lot of ways that Evola can have his influence in the state when you're playing it. But what if you're playing national mysticist Italy? How will you be able to keep Evola in check?
So, from the side of National Mysticist Italy, you are basically building on the fact that either Evola fails and steps down, which is not impossible with the Hearts of Iron AI, as many viewers probably know. But if you come into conflict with Evola, well, you will probably have to move in to reign in your colony. But should Evola fail in his own conquest, then there are governors who will be sent in to replace the toppled Evola and install a loyal colonial government. And for example, if you are playing Italy and your friend is playing Evola Libya, there's also the option for the player to have Evola stepping down after demands from Italy reach him, so you can go towards a more collaborative style of gameplay between the two.
Yeah, I'll definitely need to pick your brain about how you design that, because I want something similar for Talons and Twilight myself. So
Yeah, of course.
this is really cool.
And of course, what I also want to point out, as you have seen, for example, we have now the war between the Spanish exiles and the Republic. This is all skeleton content, by the way, in that branch. But yeah,
Cool.
with the event, for example, that just popped up, of course, it's a work in progress build. We don't have all the localization in at the moment, for example. So just that people are aware of it. It's not a bug or something that we haven't seen.
Yeah, for sure.
So that should just be noted. Also, what people tend to underestimate is, of course, you need polishing. You, of course, need to playtest. And this is really a big aspect of modding, not only just coding in the content and be done with it, but also polishing it up, getting it playable, having playtesters, having people, And we can see that there is a lot of stuff happening in Italy, in Africa itself.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to give the continent a certain dynamic nature with different outcomes between the large nations. And I think... here we have the funny Ethiopia that we mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Evola down the line with the goal of reunifying the Italian colonies and its colonial empire will also eventually move down towards the Horn of Africa in his mad conquest.
Mm-hmm.
And I fully trust our head coder that he will crush the opposition, right?
Yeah, for sure. But this is really cool. I really like what you guys have put together. I'll see if I can ask some questions that have been coming in. Somebody asked about Sweden, if they saw a red Sweden, and they're asking about that.
Yes, that's true. We do have a red Sweden.
Cool.
This is a bit early in the stages of development, but we decided that we have Sweden joining World War I in this scenario, which leads to a Swedish socialist republic that is heavily on the modernist side. So this Sweden is basically the looming socialist threat to the Baltics and to Germany in the north, and you will have this interesting axis between a socialist Sweden, Danubia, and a socialist Spain, like the three corners, which if you're like a conservative propagandist, you would say that socialism obviously has encircled Europe, right?
Exactly.
But as you can see, Danubia will first have to really build up this international during the early gameplay, which is not something that's on the branch, by the way. So just to let you guys know, but that's basically the direction that you will take with socialism. Building up the international alliance and then more or less linking up, breaking the Europa Bund, and then facing the revisionists in France and the evil mysticists in Italy.
So we got a question coming in. So are you guys going to continue the tradition of making a book written by a character who has a perspective on history, like make a quadruple bind out of Ceasarreich?
Well, we thought about continuing the tradition, and there has been countless ideas for it internally in the team, but we haven't decided on one specifically yet. So we will probably see by version 1 which kind of event we do, but we plan to do it, yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited to see what you guys resolve with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But somebody was asking, like, what would a Cold War in your headcanon look like? Like, which factions would win out and which would be rivals with each other?
Now, this is a very, very interesting question, because a funny note from development is when we talked about the factions, when we talked about basically the Second Great War and the outcomes, we kind of came to a interesting conclusion that we have every building block that we would need for a 1984 scenario emerging in the Caesarreich world. We have the British going to try to reunify their Third Empire and moving into North America during the American Civil War. We have a Eurasian ideology in Russia. We also have, which is a little bit of a tidbit from outside of Europe, but we have a Japan, which is under Ikehikita, which is a utopian socialist government. So the building blocks for East Asia are also there. And then, well, you have basically these big three power blocks, which could emerge after World War II, being in close competition to each other, and perhaps even Evola's North African order state as the neutral desert territory that was mentioned in the books, as well as the buffer state between the great powers. So I'm not saying this is the canon outcome, but is certainly a possible outcome.
Yeah, definitely don't establish any canon outcomes for your mod. Oh no. No, the troops got encircled. Oof.
I never said I was a good
You can be a good coder and get encircled. That's
Exactly.
fine. You're also live on stream.
This will
It's
be
no
a
worries.
2-day mute on the server.
Get a break. That's nice. A break from coding.
Yeah, I'm just reading in the chat, literally 1984.
Yeah, literally 1984. Yeah. But I think that's I never really thought about it, but you're totally right. Even with a literal Eurasianist Russia, for sure.
Yeah. Of course, there are also different outcomes. So yeah, as you said, never establish a canon for these kind of things. I'm also
Yeah.
always happy for fan content and what people come up with. This is always really interesting to see. So yeah.
What else do we got question-wise? Evola was weird. He allowed himself to get bombed and crippled for life. I wonder if there'll be these kinds of references and historical allusions to his real life compared to him in the mod. Do you have any?
Oh yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Cool.
Yeah. As far as I know, Evola, of course, was close with a lot of women, for example, and he had this Arto from, I think, Switzerland. And just going off with the memes here, of course, I'm sorry if that is too much, but we kind of really had the idea of alluding to his illustrious life with different mistresses, and one of them being I think even a futurist artist from Switzerland who was the mistress of Evola, and she will possibly become a operative for Evola in the later part of the gameplay, and we also want to have some mentionings of his rather, I'd say, colorful private life, and also have, of course, all the references to his works in the like in the Grupo di Ur, for example, and his writings, his interest for the Far East or for a universalist esotericism. So we try to, of course, not just develop a fantasy Evola, but base him off of his real character traits and also real happenings in his life. So I have to say we don't plan to have him become crippled due to a bombing as he was in real life. That would, if it would happen, it would probably happen after the time frame of the mod.
Cool. Does anime happen in Caesarreich?
Does anime happen? Well, that's a very good question. Who knows? Maybe it will be like these early Soviet cartoons or something. So
Yeah, whoever gets
possibly
nuked.
it could happen. Yeah.
Whoever gets nuked.
I mean, as far as I know, anime was also based on Imperial Japan's propaganda industry, where they had a lot of early knowledge about animations and so on for like public service movies and such. So I could still see such an industry arising in Ceasarreich.
Socialist Japanese anime. It sounds
Yes.
sounds
Yes.
like a lot of people's favorite, like best outcome ever. Yeah.
Yeah, now please don't have anybody draw a Kita Iki waifu. That would.
Well,
that would
you
be
literally just dared everybody to do it.
I know, but don't tell them.
Do you know we're streaming, right?
Oh, damn it. Seems like we are too late now.
Yeah. Considering Japan is socialist, how does the Asian theater play out?
Well, the Asian theater, again, is also very much work in progress and more of a sideshow, but at the current state of the mod. But we have China being split between a northern Chinese empire and a Kuomintang Republican south. As you can see here, after a failure of the Northern Expedition and different involvements of the United States and the European powers in China and East Asia as a whole. And you would probably have as the biggest conflict the reunification of China, of course, and then a possible alliance between Japan and Britain, and Japan's drive to establish a pan-Asian anti-imperialist alliance. If you look up the ideas, looks like we have the Second American Civil War happening. If you look up the ideas of Kita-Iki, it will tell you a lot about what, for example, the foreign policy of Japan will look like. Though, again, I have to say, thing there is very work in progress. We have a great East Asia team. Don't want to give too many concrete statements now because it's very possible that in 2 months these will be completely outdated.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for answering that. Best of your ability.
Oh yes, and I just saw in the chat somebody saying it's a happy-looking Wang Jingwei. And yes, it
Yeah,
for
he's
sure
very
is.
happy. Yeah, he's like, finally, I get to rule the Republic of China and Thailand. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Oops, excuse me. Somebody's asking, it's like, I'm not familiar with this mod. You can watch the playback on the stream. We cover everything that you need to know. Somebody's asking to see the sides of the American Civil War, but I imagine that it's mostly, oh, what is going on now? Eurasia
This is
fighting
now
the Baku
war
Pact.
between the Baku Pact and Eurasia. As I said, they are
Whoa.
very much squared in between the great powers of this mod. And it will be one of the early challenges between Eurasia and the Baku Pact. It's mirroring a bit the Winter War between Finland and the Soviet Union of our timeline.
I see. So
And
there'll be
think-
white peace options or like limited victory scenarios.
Yes, definitely we have these kinds of outcomes. I don't know if it's on the current branch we are on, but we could perhaps click through some factions of the American Civil War.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just whatever you
Anything
feel
in
like. Will.
particular, or
Ideology map mode would be a good thing to show, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
right?
So here you can see.
So like the gray and black are usually associated with the central government, or
Yeah, the gray are basically paternalistic, so oligarchic. Or is it like that, Rolf?
Somewhat, yeah.
Union of Texas, a socialist Texas. That's interesting.
Yes, we have a socialist Texas, which,
Cool.
yeah.
What's happening in
And-
BC? The Fraser Compact. What is that?
That's not really finished, I think. I don't
This
have the law
is
for that.
the start, like the Canadians, of course, are also under US occupation at the start with a puppet Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And if the central government in the US breaks down, the whole situation in Canada also breaks down, and the Fraser Compact is one of the planned warlords in Canada.
Nice.
However, this is again with the branch thing. I don't think the Canadian content we made so far is really on this branch.
That's okay.
Therefore, yeah.
I forgive you.
I would take everything. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now I can sleep at night.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's cool. If you want any advice on Canadian government stuff, let me know. I could lend
Oh,
my
that's
brain for a
very
bit.
nice. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really interesting ideological setup here. And how many different national unifiers would there be?
Truth be told, I haven't counted them,
Hmm.
but
A lot.
the very small warlords like the army, for example, are meant to join other factions. Like the idea that we have for the Civil War is that you don't have a fully like everybody versus everybody war, but you will have alliances between warlords arising, and for example, a warlord might declare his loyalty. For example, if he's a liberal at the West Coast, declare his loyalty to the liberals in Midwest because they see them as a legitimate government, and then you would have a alliance between these two warlords. And if they win, they would get annexed into the new state, and we would decide who annexes what by what is a player nation and what isn't.
Right.
So you don't have to basically fight people who would agree with you.
Okay, cool. A question is, somebody's asking about Canada, but we already established that we don't have Canada solidified yet. Can the American Civil War be avoided? Are factions modified by the decisions you make leading up to the Civil War?
So the leadership of the central government during the Civil War is definitely decided by what kind of decisions you take before the Civil War, but the Civil War cannot be avoided because it's too much of a driving force for a lot of the things happening in the world. You have to see the Civil War basically serves as our stock market crisis or our Black Friday in the world, like the breakdown of the American state with its global dominance at that point would send shockwaves throughout the world, would lead to economic and banking collapses, which would lead to political instability and therefore again crises and world tension and so on. And this is a lot of the backbones for development in other areas of the world. Therefore, it's such a fundamental part of what will happen in the that we cannot just have it be avoided.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Got any more questions with it? I think a lot of this stuff we can't really answer because it's still being work in progress. But will Mexico take any advantage from the Second Civil War?
I have to say that's to be decided.
Okay.
Yeah, I cannot give a clear answer at that at the moment. We have discussed this in the team, but it's currently still in debate.
Okay, that makes sense. Because adding a foreign influence on top of everything else going on can make things really complicated to develop.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What I can say who will be avoided in the Civil War will be Britain. In their aims for reconquering North America, especially Canada and their Newfoundland provinces.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's Lindbergh.
Yes, we have Lindbergh in there as well.
Cool.
Maybe also show the Midwestern Free States.
Yeah.
Yeah, under Lester P. Barlow.
And
again, as you can see, unfinished things. It's just branched and actively being worked on.
Yeah. Where's Smedley Butler at?
I think we have him with the bonus army, but
Cool.
he isn't a starting leader.
Right. Cool. I'm glad the bonus army is getting representation in a way for mod. It's a really interesting part of American history, and imagine that the bonus army would be way more vocal and way more expanded, and a lot of people not being paid. If it's like, oh, it's not in the budget, even though we promised you that you'd get a bonus. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I think you could say the bonus army is almost like a social democratic version of the German Freikorps, basically. So you have these disenfranchised soldiers, these people who on the same time want like equality, they want reforms, they want a accountable government, they want, of course, care and pay for the veterans and soldiers, and this leads to a very attractive mixture of social issues and patriotism and good old American values that significantly expands the bonus army in this timeline.
Right, that's cool. I like that. Somebody's asking, what happens to all of America's colonies when the Civil War starts?
We have different fates for the colonies, but again, that's also work in progress. We will have a breakdown of authority in the Congo, which then Germany will move in to restore order, of course.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Philippines rebelling under a native movement, which can be repelled or can't be repelled. And we will have basically have, in a lot of cases, also neighboring colonial powers moving in to secure the colony, basically having a trust handship on them, because a victory of a native rebellion in a colony could potentially, of course, also spread instability and ideas of uprising in your own colonies. You want to avoid that. And this leads to a very dangerous dynamic for uprisings in the colonies, and also, of course, a big problem for the US after their reunification, should they want their colonies back.
Right. Cool. Okay. Da, 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 da. Is there going to be a Roosevelt-like path for America, like a faction that's like progressive, like Roosevelt would have been, or?
Yes, these would be Midwestern free states as the main progressive part of the American Civil War, and then you would of course have sub-paths and branches from there, but I don't want to spoil too much. But yes, there will be a progressive US path.
Awesome. Well, I think that's most of the questions. If you guys want to keep showing off gameplay, we do that for a little bit. Unless there's anything else
You
you
said
wanted
you wanted to show off Britain as well.
Yeah, we can also quickly look into Britain if people are interested in that, or we can also do a bit more gameplay for Evola, maybe show Evola's focus tree. I think we have only glanced over that. So you can see on the top left is basically his political tree, his establishment of Evola's state, which also works together with this balance of power. So you do these focuses to your grip on command and avoid people rising against you, and then the player basically has this incentive to do the focus, so he moves the balance of power, gets bonuses for his conquests, gets bonuses for his army. Then we have the Ride the Tiger tree branch. Also, just a quick side note, very interesting, you can see on the left side here very early icons, and right next to it, Ride the Tiger tree, you can see more of our current icons, just to show a bit of the artistic progress that we also had.
Yeah,
And
it's
the
really
Ride the
interesting.
Tiger branch, thanks. It is basically our expansion tree. It also guides you a bit, so you can see what could possibly be achieved under Evola. And caution, and you have here a focus which is called Cautions for the Weak, which is basically where the breaking point during your mad dash for conquest comes, where you will break with Italy if this focus is taken, which will be handled through an event. Or if you fail beforehand and you get cooped through the balance of power, of course you won't even get to that. But yeah, it's the expansion and the end goal for Evola, which can be seen on the very bottom with the One True Empire focus. And I don't wanna spoil too much, but there will be content for Evola's Italy as well. And
Right.
on the top right, we then have this very typical building up the colony, building up North Africa. This will be a shared focus also for the post-Evola pro-Italy governors. You can build your army, you can build your industry, you can build your research, just so you can also work with it. And we try to keep it very topical as well for Libya and for the colonial empire, so it's not just generic bonuses that you're getting.
Cool. Awesome. So did you
Thanks.
guys want to show the Britain stuff quickly? Or
For sure we can,
Yeah.
right, Rolf?
would you need to switch branches?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to quickly
Yeah, so we're going to do that really
hide
quick.
my Discord and go to Photoshop. Okay. I'll see if I can find any interesting questions in chat while we wait.
Yes.
There's a lot of like more granular questions that Tom Felix, who's been directing people to the Discord for. So
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
that
Tom
it's just
Felix is a dev from the Discord, so just so you know, what he says is official.
And he's behind most of the flags, right? That's one of his main
Yes,
things.
he's our chief flag artist, so all thanks for the great work that he's done so far.
Mm-hmm. Wait,
Yeah, I also realized, by the way, the title is spelled wrong.
the title of my
For the stream.
stream? Oh my god.
Yeah.
Rookie
So-
mistake. Oh, okay. I can fix it after. But what's
Okay.
the exact what's the
Say
error?
A and then the E.
Oh,
With Caesarreich.
it's my Anglo non-European foolishness that led to that. So I apologize.
Well, I mean, isn't it also a bit charming just to show the human side of things?
Yes, this is no AI. Okay, back to Discord because you're ready to stream now, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, it's currently loading.
great. So now we're on the Britain branch.
Yep.
Oh, cool. Got that started now. That's good.
Yes. I think
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to just highlight that we are also using dynamic trees. So that's why you only get the starting and the army tree at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting seeing other people's builds and how they play the game.
Hmm.
I shouldn't really
Yeah.
take an example from me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're on stream, you're rushing, you're trying to show the work. Yeah, you're not playing to win.
Yeah, I mean, I think people also have very different play styles throughout the community, is what I realized. You know,
Mhm.
the role player versus the min-maxer, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So Britain has been my domain for most of the time I've been working here. So this is a bit personal. It also has the most locked done. Most of this has been teased on the Discord. But the broad ideas is that in early 1936, as with most movements in our mod, Britain is going to experience a fall of its movement. So the movement splits into the three factions: the more aristocratic national mysticist right, the center National Socialists, and the more left-wing National Socialists, which will all be paths.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of also sounds like an oxymoron, but with the context, yeah, it makes sense. If it's a British-born movement that just coincidentally has the same name, surely things would be different like that. Yeah, I like that. I appreciate the boldness of taking that name. So I'm guessing that there will be some sort of action what are the sort of actions that Britain can take against the U.S. during its civil war?
So there is an Canadian loyalist movement active in the Civil War, which Britain can and will support. Their primary goal is to, reconquer Canada and possibly a bit more to, secure their imperial borders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and of course, Britain can also then directly intervene on the continental civil war, and this would be fully in line with the ideal of the Third Empire that is promoted by the NSP. And you could then set up a loyal, like ideally if Britain really wins everything, set up a loyal puppet government in the United States.
Interesting. Who would be a part of that government? Have you guys determined that yet, or?
We have had some discussions about possible puppet leaders, but it is not final yet.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yes. Yeah, and of course the different paths for Britain, but I should say that at least for the first release, we are mainly focusing on NSP Britain, so there won't be any oppositional paths, at least for now.
That's definitely the right path to take, because if you hold back everything developing one branch when 3 branches when you could have just one branch, and then the gameplay works for everyone else.
That's exactly the idea.
That's definitely the right
also
move.
Thanks. And we also work just with the assumption that we wanna focus these nations. We don't wanna have this kind of where you have a nation and then you have a path for every ideology. We wanna have a specific flair and idea and aesthetic of a nation in the mod, and then it would be a bit counterintuitive to just have like 50 different paths for every ideology under the sun. So Great Britain is meant to be the National Socialist, in our definition, kind of path.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also what we want to first focus on. This doesn't rule out that we have maybe in the future more positional paths, but this would only be down the line, and only paths which feel natural and logical to the starting point of Britain that we have at this moment.
Right. Somebody's asking, what's Churchill doing?
Churchill? Ralph, what is Churchill doing?
I think he's irrelevant. Or he was a part of the NSP, I don't remember. Oh no, actually... I think he's a collaborator with the NSP as a more conservative guy.
Yeah. We have basically also a philosophy in the mod that we don't really want to use larger-than-life, real-life leaders in the mod. I know other mods, for example, do a funny Churchill India thing, which I think is a very cool idea, but in my opinion, as soon as you put in somebody like Hitler, Mussolini, Stalin, Churchill, and so on, people will be super focused on these characters, and then it will basically overshadow more unknown characters, and therefore we want to focus less on these large names from our timeline and have this mirror universe where they are more obscure, unimportant figures. Of course, if it's justifiable by lore, or even that, and focus more on these specific characters that we try to establish in Ceasarreich.
Cool.
Thanks. Also, I have to say I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off sometimes. I know I have a bit of a tendency to yap along.
No, this is the entire point of the stream. It's you guys showing what you've made, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no worries. If anything, I've been talking too much, so no worries about that.
No, absolutely.
Somebody's asking for a Churchill Whiskey Rage event. Maybe that has to be
who
thrown
knows?
in there.
More flavor events can always be interesting, right?
Yeah, for sure. A whiskey flavor event.
The whiskey incident.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if this is even in line with the NSP, but it's like if there's a ban on alcohol, Churchill just goes crazy or something. Yeah.
I think the NSP would be these type of fine, gentlemanly, upper class guys from the leadership. That's also something important to the NSP. You know, that they aren't really this, at least initially they aren't this rebellious, revolutionary bunch of people, for the fact that the British society is rather conservative in nature. But they will basically try to pass off what they are doing as, you know, legitimate, like legalistic, gentlemanly, maybe even.
Right.
And the more that they get into power, the more freely they can also act. And here's what I said earlier with the whole dynamic focus tree. Now we have the main Williamson focus tree unlocked. with the beautiful GFX done by our artists.
It's really gorgeous.
Which, thank you. And it also should show a bit of the aesthetic and the flair that we want to go with the NSP.
Very good. Somebody's asking if there's anything that can be shown for the Germans. I assume that they just defer to the teasers that have been out.
Well, I mean, I showed the starting tree for Severing earlier in the stream.
Yeah.
But I don't think the German content is on that branch, and I wouldn't want to have our poor Rauf again switching the branches.
Yeah.
We can show just the starting setup.
Maybe we finish showcasing Britain and then end stream after that. I think that just makes more sense. Yeah, the focus is really with the idea.
Well, yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And just to add to the German question, if there are any more questions or stuff, we can also always answer things on the Discord, and all the teasers are also uploaded on the Discord and on Reddit. So you can find the information there as well.
Yeah, it should be in the link of the description of the typoed video.
The typoed video. Yeah, it's
don't worry, it'll be fixed. It'll be fixed.
Yeah, I mean it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I just found it funny and somebody pointed it out.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have the beginnings of a custom UI, as some people might have already noticed, with the decision tabs and the...
Not on this branch.
Oh.
But here the decision tabs, for example.
Well,
Just want to
right.
say... Yeah, and also the focus icon plugs are our own. Do you call them plaquettes in English? Like the little
placards,
name for
I think.
Yeah,
I think it's placards.
Yeah, so just to illustrate a point that we also gradually want to move towards the direction of our own custom UI. So we also want to keep, of course, the readability. So we are always rather slow and deliberate with changes to the UI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we also have a lot of localization already done for Britain, thanks to our great log writers.
Yeah, even the way that the focus tree is like playing out, like I haven't been able to read the events obviously, but the amount of events that are clearly scheduled and planned and the writing effort that's been put in already, this is looking to be pretty awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it's also important to just have things happening, to have a nation feel alive at the beginning. I think I always feel a bit sad when I'm playing, a game, and then you just do focus and you get XP, and then you do the focus until you get to the war, and you play out a war, and that's it. Like,
yeah.
At least me personally, I wanna have a bit of a story as well. It doesn't need to be a visual novel, of course, but just something to add a little bit of flavor to it. And we also have, of course, then the custom mechanics, which serve to underline the functioning of the NSP government, where you have to keep the factions in check, you have to navigate a big tent party, and yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if we will get to it, but is the Irish War on the branch, Rolf?
Yes, it is, but it's I think it's in April.
Okay. No, so maybe we will get to it this stream, then people might see some action. Yeah,
Somebody asked, why are the Dutch staying out of the Europa Pact?
Well, the Dutch basically act as a neutral harbor of Europe. after the war, so they can have trade with all the factions, and the Europa Pact was formed directly in the post-war years during the reordering of Eastern Europe and to an extent the Austro-Hungarian Empire by Germany, and evolved from the new governments that arose with the blessing of Berlin, and the Netherlands simply weren't aligned with it. So they certainly have trade with the Europabund, but they, for now at least, are their own thing, and it will be an aspect of the gameplay of the Netherlands to kind of tiptoe if you want to align yourself fully with the Europabund, or if you want to go your own neutral route, if you want to maybe even join a different faction should you have the apparent changes in your ideological makeup. So just to give also the player a bit of the choices.
I'm seeing people ask for showing Arabia and Turkey. If you go back in the playback of the stream, there are teasers that are shown that, and there's more depth that's highlighted by the developers talking about those teasers instead of just reading them. But if you want to see high quality versions of the teasers, you can check out their Discord, and they should have everything that you need to understand what's going on there.
So this is the Compact Nation. We have a very talented developer for the Middle East, and the Turkish Republic is a major player after the fall of the Ottoman Empire and carved out its own sphere of influence. They, for example, also have a, I'd say, cordial alignment with the Europabund, although they are not fully allied or even part of it. This is also important for us, that we want to establish the Europabund is not just the central powers, but after the war.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
That's cool. So the there's a event chain there, and then it determines which focus you take there. It's cool. Oh.
So the Ireland War is about to start.
Ooh.
I don't believe we've shown this off. Oh well, now I'm gonna embarrass myself again.
Oh, don't worry.
All right.
Don't worry. Then we can show the failed paths, right?
I don't think we transferred the navy fixes to this branch.
Oh, okay.
So we don't have any navy actually.
Okay.
Well.
Reconquer the waves.
We all know that.
Yeah.
But we all know that Ralph Farser is such a good general that he can invade Ireland without a navy.
by using the fabled TP enabled. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Right.
Del all Ire.
This is like the secret National Socialist Wunderwaffen being the teleportation devices. Joking, of course.
Yes.
There's also a small event chain for Ireland to call for German support.
That makes sense.
That has different outcomes, like Britain backing down, for example, but most of them just resolve in the war starting, and maybe Britain gets 1 or 2 debuffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we made a similar draft to the ones we showed earlier to plan out the Irish Civil War. And the idea basically is, for the Irish side, of course, you will want to reach out to as many nations as possible for help, for weaponry, for support, to possibly stall off the British long enough that the war becomes politically untenable for the big tent movement that the NSP is. Because they are basically hoping they could bleed the British dry enough that the war becomes unjustifiable to the British public and too much of an embarrassment for the rather self-confident, nationalistic NSP.
Kind of like the way that vanilla has a failure in the Ethiopian War for Italy, meaning
Yeah,
that you can go different
exactly.
paths. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Williamson, the Messiah he is, will command the Irish Sea to let the army pass. Yeah, that sounds that sounds
Yes, of
reasonable.
course.
Yeah,
God willing, they shall cross the Irish Sea.
yeah. Now you have to add a naval passing just for that. You know.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe a future April Fool's update.
Yeah, yeah.
Conqueror of the Sea. Now that sounds nice.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. See, he's already taking the decisions to bend the Poseidon to his will.
Yes. And of course, as with everything, like this is the British branch as a playtesting branch, for example, to see the balancing, to see how things are working out. And look, oh wow!
Oh my God! What
the
an
invasion
amazing
of
maneuver!
Ireland has suddenly worked.
Okay, I think you're gonna need to use some more magic. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have a question. What's his face? Aleister Crowley doing? Is it
So
Crowley?
Aleister, yeah, I think you mean the esoteric
Yeah,
strange guy, right?
the Thoth guy.
Yeah. So with Crowley, we had him initially being in connection with JFC Fuller, which is a general and also a possible path for Britain. However, during the time that the mod takes place, Crawley was not only a complete, I'd say, outcast to British society. He was also no longer at this point in his life really aligned with Fuller at all. So he is basically a colorful, strange figure to the British public. He is in retreat in his personal little housing complex with his little cult that he also had in real life. But he isn't in any way influential in British politics, or not even on national mysticist circles at all. He's just his own little weird microcosm, I guess you could call it.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense. Good candidate for national mysticist leader for puppet, maybe, but not influential in the government. Makes sense.
Yeah, and I think even for a puppet, we have basically have people who could fit it better, because you see, you also have to find a movement who would support him, and a broader basis, and an army and stuff like that. And even in real life, Fuller himself had immense problems later because he was affiliated with Aleister Crowley, and therefore it seems too much of a stretch to have him just becoming the leader of a nation when he was really just seen by everybody, even in nationalistic circles, as a strange weirdo.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh yeah, air, that would be important to use.
Seems like Ireland is about to fall to the glorious arms of the British Empire.
Yes. They're deciding to declare war on all of Britain's puppets and allies. Sudan. Wow. Interesting.
Now onwards to Belfast.
Yes. It's just a little longer in this special military operation. Surely things will turn around soon. Just keep mobilizing.
I mean, this has to be a very heroic last stand for the Irish, I
Ah,
assume.
well, I took too long.
Uh-oh.
You took too long? Uh-oh.
I got the debuff. Oh no.
Uh-oh.
So, confidence in your abilities waning even after you parted the Irish Sea. Imagine that.
Yeah, it's Irish holding strong in Belfast too. It's a big feat. You'd think that there'd be the first place the British would go to.
Yep.
Mm. Oh, look now. There you go. Oh, we did it. We did it, chat. Yay. Great. Brilliant. Cool. Okay, well, with that stunning victory, I think that's a good point to wrap up the stream. Do you guys have anything else that you want to mention to the chat or other things that you want to talk about?
Well, I would just say as a closing statement that, of course, the mod is in development. We are really doing our best to give a great, fun experience and a fascinating world to the people playing it and following the project. And everybody's also welcome to join on our Discord, or if somebody thinks he can or wants to contribute to the project, also join the team. We are always looking for new people. And we are also happy to answer any further questions on our Ask a Dev channel on our Discord server. So yeah, and it has been a pleasure being on the stream. I'm really happy this worked out, and just thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Thank you, Rolf, for showing the different branches, and best of luck to you all and your work. The art's awesome. The lore development that you guys have done has been great, and I'm very lucky to have you guys get so inspired by my video. In fact, it's pretty interesting that Ceasarreich, the April Fool's video, ended up exposing one of my most signature series, the LoreGrave. So Caesarreich is pretty special to me too. So I'm glad to be able to feature you guys, and I'm looking forward to playing it when it's released.
Thank you so much.
Cool. And okay, goodbye everybody. Have a good